For years, NASCAR fans and drivers have advocated for one thing: more horsepower. As competition tightens and passing becomes more difficult, particularly on short tracks, the call for power grows louder. With NASCAR officials publicly exploring a horsepower increase from 670 to 750, a new age of debate has begun in the paddock. What began as a technical proposal has evolved into a full-fledged conversation involving the sport's stars, champions, and legends. And some big players have opened up about the idea, shocking NASCAR in the process. Bubba Wallace, for one, has supported the concept of raising the horsepower of stock cars in the NASCAR Cup Series. This comes after NASCAR Senior Vice President of Competition Elton Sawyer said to SiriusXM NASCAR Radio that boosting the horsepower from 670 to 750 is on the table. He explains, "We are working closely with all the stakeholders in the industry, and the collaboration has been better than ever in our sport on all topics. This particular one, we had a team owner council meeting last week, came up and we discussed that. Working closely. I know John Probst, Senior Vice President of Innovation and Racing Development, had a conversation with our engine builders to see what we could do, how that would look, and what changes would need to be made." While speaking to the media before of the election in Nashville, Wallace expressed his support for the plan, stating, "I think more horsepower would help out everywhere, honestly. These cars are so close now, and some of these tracks that we go to, shifting just deletes the option of passing. We're having to just operate inside the sandbox that we're given. It is what it is," Wallace added. "That's why teams are getting so much more competitive, and that the gap is decreasing. So I think more horsepower kind of brings you back to the old school feel. It just puts it back in the driver's hands, and that's what we want." When asked how much of an increase he would like to see, the 31-year-old driver replied jokingly, 1,000, before adding, "More than what we've got. I think if you go in small increments, it's just like sticking a band-aid on something. I'm not asking for 900, but 750 at least or higher, just to see if it's as easy and somewhat cost-efficient as they're saying. It should show from there. I think we need a big step. What are we scared of? We've been saying it for years that we want more horsepower, and we've been told they're waiting for other manufacturers. Well, they ain't in, so let's do something." Wallace's viewpoint echoes across the Cup Series garage as more drivers weigh in. Earlier this week, NASCAR officials hinted at increasing horsepower from 670 GP to 750 GP, at least on short tracks. And it might happen before the end of the 2025 season. "It's on the table," NASCAR Senior Vice President of Competition Elton Sawyer told SiriusXM NASCAR Radio. "We are working closely with all the stakeholders in the industry, and the collaboration has been better than ever in our sport on all topics. This particular one, we had a team owner council meeting last week, came up, and we discussed that. Working closely, I know John Probst, Senior Vice President of Innovation and Racing Development, had a conversation with our engine builders to see what we could do, how that would look, and what changes would need to be made." These comments were echoed by NASCAR Managing Director of Communications Mike Ford on the podcast Hauler Talk, saying, "It was something we proactively brought up to have a further discussion of improving the short track package. Obviously, the drivers all embraced that topic and requested more and more horsepower." Ford acknowledged that NASCAR is looking into it as they assess the viability of the adjustment. Only a decade ago, horsepower reached 900 horsepower, which was steadily reduced until the extremely controversial 550 horsepower package was presented in 2019. When the next-gen automobile arrived in 2022, horsepower was increased to 670 GP. This week, numerous drivers stated their desire for this to happen, citing the mediocre racing at short tracks in recent years. They struggle to pass, and drivers frequently complain about a lack of power. "I definitely think it needs more," said Josh Berry, who won at Las Vegas earlier this year. "The question, I think, boils down to how much more does it need to move the needle? I don't really have an answer to that. It probably needs to be pretty significant. What I would hate to happen is to go up 100 horsepower, and it doesn't really look that different, and everyone goes, 'Oh, that wasn't it.' It is a combination of a lot of things. It is the aero side of the car, it is horsepower, it's the tires. Honestly, it's technology. I raced a Pro Late model on Thursday night, and when I got out front, my car drove a lot better than when I was tucked up behind someone's bumper. It's just technology, and the field is that close. It's just physics and aero. It would definitely be a step in the right direction if they go in that direction. We will see what happens. Chase Elliott, the 2020 NASCAR Cup Series champion, was also asked about a probable boost in horsepower. "I'm not super in tune with what those numbers are or like what's being talked about as far as how far they want to go with it," said the Hendrick Motorsports driver. "I don't know that I'm super educated on kind of what's possible, what's even true or not true. I think it'd be worth a shot, if the engine manufacturers are willing to do it. And that's probably going to be a question for them, truthfully, because they're going to dictate how much power we can give the current packages that we have and still have the longevity and the reliability we expect to have, because I think we have to run them 3 times. So, I think without having a total overhaul, you've got to play within those walls, right? And I think the engine manufacturers are going to have to get on the same page and agree to a number, which is always difficult. Chevrolet might want one thing, Toyota might want something else, and Ford might want something different. And everybody kind of plays to their strengths as to what they think they have their leg up on, right? And that's just a game. So you're going to have to get all of them to agree, which in my view, is going to be a difficult thing to do. But hopefully they can, and everybody's willing to give it a shot somewhere just to see if it makes a difference. It might not do anything, but it might really help. And until you try, I don't know that you really have an answer," Elliott said. Driver Ryan Preece is among those who would like to see the modification implemented, believing it will improve his driving style. "There are things I do with the brake pedal or the throttle or brake bias. Another tool on how to help your car exit the corner, or when you're setting up a pass being able to clear, having that extra horsepower. But at the end of the day, if the rules are the same for everybody, you've just got to figure out how to do it better than everybody else." But to answer the question on fans and what they want or whatnot, I'm just going to use the 600 as an example. I went back and watched it, and that race was a great race to watch. When I look at North Wilkesboro and how that race was, that was a good race to watch, said Preece. He continued, "That usually comes from varying strategies. I think it comes from a whole bunch of different things. So if we continue to make adjustments, I think we're definitely going to keep fans entertained. But I'm obviously somebody that is always going to be of the give me more horsepower, and not just a little bit. It's not a 30 or 70 horsepower increase. It's like guys way back in the day were racing 900 horsepower, and now we're in 2025, so I'm not speaking for the engine builders. I'm speaking selfishly as a race car driver who wants the challenge." Meanwhile, not everyone sees increased horsepower as a silver bullet answer. Dale Earnhardt Jr. and Michael McDowell have had an enjoyable conversation regarding increased horsepower. On Saturday, Michael McDowell raised doubts about an increase. "I think it's just an illusion that some of the drivers and media are trying to paint," he said during media availabilities at Nashville. Dale Earnhardt Jr. took objection to such remarks. Dale Jr. shared a GIF of Michael Scott from The Office asking, "Why are you the way that you are?" McDowell replied in kind, "Because I am in touch with reality. 50 GP isn't going to do anything," McDowell quipped back on Twitter X. 200 GP, then it would be a great conversation, but we are trying to make it something that it is not. The guys that complain are the guys that had a car advantage over the entire field. Those days are gone. The competition is tighter. It is going to be hard to pass regardless of the changes we make. Tell me when we added power or speed and made the racing better." Dale Earnhardt Jr. reacted shortly after. He views things differently than McDowell, for sure. "It was my understanding that it was a consideration for the short tracks," Earnhardt responded. "Knowing that these specific tracks themselves are in serious need of a change, why not go for it? It should induce more tire wear, higher corner entry speeds, longer braking zones. I know it's a small change, but well worth the opportunity to improve the short tracks. As a fan and broadcaster, I can get excited about that, even as a mere possibility." NASCAR has tested tires. They tested new aerodynamic packages. They even tried with removing the car's splitters. However, each test typically involves only a few cars. As a result, the cars respond well. Then they tested it in a race with 40 cars on the track, and the adjustments did not react in the same way. Many drivers assume that more horsepower is the way to progress. Then there are players like Michael McDowell who see it as bigger teams expressing dissatisfaction with the fact that the next gen offers the underdogs a shot. Ross Chastain stated that he does not care and will drive whatever car they put him in, no matter how powerful it is. At this point, NASCAR has tried everything to improve passing on short tracks. Nashville is a track that is more than a mile long and difficult to pass. So why not try extra horsepower? As Dale Earnhardt Jr. suggested, increase it from 670 GP to 750 plus HP. If it doesn't cut it, increase the power to 800 horsepower. What began as a spark has turned into a raging dispute within the NASCAR garage. The horsepower debate affects everyone in the sport, including drivers, manufacturers, fans, and legends. Whether it's 750 horsepower or more, the sport is at a crossroads. Refine the edges or make a dramatic move. One thing is certain, the drivers are ready. It is now up to NASCAR to make their move.